Here to welcome us to the virtual summit today, I am so pleased to introduce Dave Bennett, who you can see on screen here as well. And in addition to his role as the Invasive Species Council of BC's Board of Directors Chair, Dave is also the Policy Committee Chair with the National Electricity Roundtable and the Director of Communications and External Relations with Fortis BC. He has been keeping the natural gas on for British Columbians, and that's been keeping him really busy during this time. And we are so grateful to you for making the time today, Dave, to be here. So thank you. We really appreciate it. And thank you so much for welcoming us. I'll pass it over to you.
Well, thanks, Jenny. I'm very excited to be here on behalf of the Invasive Species Council of BC's Board of Directors. It's my pleasure to welcome you to ISCBC's first virtual youth summit. And there are over 100 youth and adults from across Canada registered for our summit. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We are here this weekend to recognize the service of our youth volunteers, hear from inspiring storytellers, and learn how to move from awareness to action. Today is exciting because not only are we starting the virtual youth summit, but we are also at the beginning of the Invasive Species Action Month. Every May, communities across BC join together to take action against the invasive species. There are virtual events happening all month, so be sure to check out bcinvasivesmonth.com for more information. You can also find us on social media. We regularly stream content on our Facebook page, including this summit. Attending a summit from home requires a few health and safety considerations. I'm sure some of you have been dealing with this over the last few weeks. Try to set your monitor or phone at eye level to relieve neck strain. We'll be taking regular movement breaks throughout the summit. 5 minutes of walking or light stretching will aid your focus during the event. The ISCBC Youth Volunteer Project is funded by the Government of Canada under the Canada Service Corps. Thank you to the Government of Canada for their support. And finally, we're grateful to have Musqueam Nation join us today for the virtual youth summit. The original summit that was scheduled in March, I think, was set to happen on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam people. We are honored by the Musqueam Nation, and they have agreed to host us and welcome us to their territories for that event. Today, I'm pleased to introduce Vanessa Campbell from the Musqueam Nation.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for that intro. It's Vanessa Campbell, and I'm from the Musqueam Nation. It's my honor to join you all here to speak and represent my elders, my community, and my chief and council in kicking off your summit. I work in the language and culture department in Musqueam, and I was initially asked by one of my closest friends to speak to you in Hunt Communum and welcome you all to our territory. But since we've shifted to an online platform, I changed up the speech a little bit to focus more on helping everyone set a good tone for the start of your gathering, to help ground your minds and your hearts in a really good place, and to most importantly, thank you for all of your hard work taking care of this land. Our traditional territory encompasses what is now called Vancouver and its surrounding area, and Musqueam houses the last salmon-bearing stream that runs through our city, and it's a huge focal point in the story that our ancestors tell of the origin of our name, Musqueam. We have an aquatic habitat restoration program, an environmental stewardship department, and a fisheries department, all working together to protect this land and do really similar work to what ISCBC and each of you have been doing over the last year. And so once again, thank you, Haitka, Haitsatka. Thank each and every one of you for joining us as stewards of this land, and thank you again for inviting me here today.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. We're so grateful that you could be here today and to welcome us. So thank you. We really appreciate that. Next, we are going to hear a little bit about all of the amazing volunteer projects that have been happening around the province this year. And they've been led by 3 Invasive Species Council BC youth facilitators in Kamloops, Williams Lake, and the Lower Mainland. And I have been truly inspired by their leadership and the amazing projects that they and the phenomenal volunteers, and I know some of you are online and we're so excited to have you here, have accomplished in the past year. And we are really excited to keep going and make even more of an impact this coming year as well. So first off, I would like to introduce Caitlin Bassat, who lives in Kamloops. And she's been working in the field of environmental education and volunteer management for over 10 years. She's passionate about engaging children and young adults to become environmental stewards in their community. So first off, we're going to hear about the projects she and her volunteers have been working on in the Kamloops area. So welcome, Caitlin.
Thanks, Jenny. Hi, everyone. I'll just share my screen here first before I get started. So I'm super excited to be here tonight and to share all the amazing work that the Kamloops volunteers have done. I was lucky enough to work with all of them since October, and we worked on 3 different projects in the Kamloops area, one up at Sun Peaks, another at McArthur Island Park, and the third was at the BC Wildlife Park. So the first project that we worked on was up at Sun Peaks, which is a ski hill that's 45 minutes from Kamloops. It's also a very popular spot for hiking and mountain biking during the summer months, and they receive thousands of international visitors every year. So we were invited up there by invasive plant specialist Catherine Tarasoff from Agro West Consulting, and she wanted us to help her with this site because it's one of the largest known areas of spotted knapweed in the Sun Peaks area. And as you can see on the photos, that roadway there, that's actually the main road into Sun Peaks. So with lots of vehicle traffic and people walking just on the roadside, there is a high probability of seeds being spread to other areas from spotted knapweed. So the volunteers went out, did a bunch of weed pulling, and basically definitely helped restore the site back to more of a natural ecosystem. The next project that we worked on was out at the BC Wildlife Park, which is home to 55 different wildlife species, and it's a nonprofit society. They also receive over 100,000 visitors a year. I had previous knowledge that there were invasive plants present on this site, so that's why I recommended that my volunteers go out and help the park out. So we started by surveying the 106 acres of the park, with the exception of going into the animal enclosures for obvious reasons. So we identified invasive plants, but we also identified native plant species as well. So this was a great opportunity for volunteers to learn simple plant identification skills and to get familiar with different types of invasive plants. As we surveyed, we marked the locations of the invasive plants on aerial photos, and we had 30 different aerial photo sites. And then one of our volunteers created this aerial photo map that you see on the slide, and the pink areas indicate where invasive plants are present at the park. So as you can see, it's quite a large area. We identified over 15 different invasive species. So it was really exciting to see this map come together, and it's going to be part of a weed management plan that we're putting together to help the park staff out with managing their invasive plants. We also conducted 2 different weed pulls. We conducted them in an empty enclosure that you see in the photo. So this is the before picture. We were removing diffuse snapweed, nodding thistle, Canada thistle, Horiolistum, just to name a few. There was also common burdock in this enclosure as well. And then here is the after. So this is after 3 hours of weed pulling. So it was awesome to see the impact that our volunteers were able to make in such a short period of time. Now, the reason the zookeepers asked us to work in this empty enclosure is they've actually applied to be a part of the species survival plan for the endangered Przewalski horses of Mongolia. So with Horiolisum present in this enclosure, they cannot put the horses in there because Horiolisum is toxic to horses. And then here's another great photo of us celebrating after the 3 years of pulling all those weeds. So it's definitely really inspiring when you get into an area and you remove a whole bunch of invasive plants, and then you get to see the end result. We also attended lots of community events in Kamloops and also at the park. So these photos here, we were out at the Wildlights Festival that runs in December at the Wildlife Park, and we got to talk to Santa about invasive plants. So we ensured to tell him that his sleigh is a large vector of spread since he's traveling all around the world in one night. And thankfully, he was very receptive to our education, which was great. The next project that we worked on was out at McArthur Island Park, which is a popular recreation and sports area in Kamloops. So we surveyed the nature trail and the disc golf course, which is on the west end of the park. And we identified 5 different invasive species, one of which was Himalayan blackberry, and park staff hadn't actually found this establishment yet. So they were very thankful that we found a brand new establishment of invasive Himalayan blackberry, which we then went out and we pulled. So there's 2 sites that we found with blackberry on site. So we did quite a few weed pulls to actually clear these areas out. We also removed common burdock as well. As we were pulling out Himalayan blackberry, we got to see firsthand the negative impacts that invasive plants can have on an ecosystem, because one of the root systems we removed had actually wrapped itself around a young Douglas fir tree root and was killing it. So it's just a really good example of how invasive species can impact our habitats. We also had lots of people walking by on the nature trails. It was a great way to educate residents of Kamloops about the importance of not planting Himalayan blackberry and why, because they were always super curious to see what we were doing. So it was a great opportunity for education. Our plan for this site and of course the park is to go back when we can, when it's safe to do so. Right now we can't because of what's happening in the world, but our plan is to monitor for any new growth and to continue to help out. Another really cool project, and the last one I'll talk about, is several of the Kamloops volunteers are very creative and artistic. So they actually created invasive species art. So several of the art pieces you see on this slide were turned into educational resources for children. And then our hope and dream, when everything gets back to normal, is to actually organize an invasive species art exhibit, because we can reach lots of people through art, which is great. That concludes my presentation. I just want to say a thank you to our project partners. And next up, we have Torin Kelly, who is also an ISCBC youth facilitator in the Williams Lake area. The Williams Lake Volunteer Group has been able to get out to get a very field-focused experience, as Torin has been in the environmental restoration field for 4 years. He is always happy to share his knowledge and experience with anyone who will listen.
Absolutely. Anyone that will listen to me, I will talk to, no matter what. Yes, hello. Thanks, Caitlin. Like Caitlin said, my name is Torin Kelly. I work for the Invasive Species Council of BC as a volunteer youth facilitator in Williams Lake, but I've actually recently moved to the Lower Mainland, to Maple Ridge. But I'm super stoked to share with you guys all the great work that my volunteer team has done over the past year. Now I'm just gonna quickly share this presentation. So yeah, in Williams Lake, we had the opportunity to do work at 4 separate sites. The sites that I'm going to be highlighting today are 2 of the ones that we really enjoyed working at. But the 4 sites that we got to work at in Williams Lake were Russet Bluff, which is this amazing hiking trail just about 10 minutes outside of Williams Lake with a gorgeous view. We got to work at River Valley Trail, which is an awesome trail system. It's about 20 kilometers long altogether. We got to work at Scout Island, and we got to work at a awesome little community garden. So the first one I want to highlight today is Scout Island. So Scout Island is this little piece of nature right in the middle of Williams Lake, basically. It is a 2-minute drive from where I was living, and it was a 5-minute drive from the invasive species main office. It is this bird sanctuary with hundreds of different species of birds are there, and it is just my favorite place to go. I really loved learning how to birdwatch, and it's along this amazing migratory path. So we thought, you know what, this would be a great focus to go in, maybe do some surveys for invasive plants since it's so frequent by the public, and deal with those. So the pictures that you see on the screen here was our very first invasive species pull at Scout Island. And it was actually done in collaboration with the high school's Enviro Club. So the people that you see here were the first volunteers that joined on. I wouldn't say I poached them, but I was very happy to have them on my team, as well as them being on the Enviro Club at their high school. As you can see, they're having a great time. We were at the north side of Scout Island here, digging up lots of burdock and thistle in this kind of heavily shaded area, and it was a really great time. This was an awesome day at Scout Island. We did a survey, and it was more in the fall, so we had a great opportunity to learn about the different forms a plant can take. So when a plant starts to die in the fall, we did a lot of plant skeleton ID, which was really interesting, and the volunteers really enjoyed it. The picture on the right here was us after our walk discussing what we learned and talking about ways that we can move into more of a outreach focus with the stuff that we were learning, which was awesome. And even in the dead of winter, my volunteers were asking me, are we still going out this weekend? It was snowing. Are we still going out this weekend? I originally came from the Lower Mainland, so when I moved to Williams Lake and had my first winter, it was a bit of a shock to me. But these volunteers have lived in Williams Lake most of their lives, and they were up and ready to go. -5, here we go. Get all the burrs out of there. It was a really great time. And this is just goes to show you, Caitlin brought it up in her presentation, but the impact that you see when you're dealing with these invasive species, when you see the difference you're making, it just puts a smile on your face. It's just such a great experience. Now, I had a little video my volunteers were filming, and I think it's great, but I just want to show you guys, see what you think. Awesome. Yeah, so that was such a fun day doing that winter ID with volunteers. Now, the next one I'm going to highlight here was a really interesting project that we got to actually collaborate with someone across the hall from us, was the Caribou Chilcotin Conservation Society. They asked us if we could help them build a new composting unit at the local garden, the local memory garden. And it was such a cool experience being able to teach these volunteers about composting, and the way that we kind of focused it around invasive species is a lot of the time the people that were running this composter noticed that people were putting in invasive species. And when you try to compost an invasive species, a lot of the time it's just going to take off and take over that compost pile. So this is the first day at the memory garden. On the picture on the left there, we had one of the Caribou Chilcotin Conservation Society members, Oliver, coming out and explaining to us how to compost and what composting is. And we actually took down and helped clean up an old composter that was a little neglected. And we had the opportunity to recycle a lot of that material and recycle that composter into a new one with all the stuff that was still usable. And with that being said, a composter would not stay a composter unless somebody was flipping it, unless somebody was maintaining it. So our amazing volunteer group went out on their weekends, went out and maintained this composter for their community. So everyone there could be using this fresh, gorgeous soil that was being made. And eventually what had happened is that the people using the garden noticed that what we were doing and actually took it over from us. So that was a big success for us. And like I said, this wouldn't be an invasive species project if we did not focus around invasive species. So we had the opportunity to get some supplies and create some awesome signage. That was a really fun day we had. We went out to we went out and it was raining, so I brought the canopy out. We had a good time sitting under the canopy painting these signs. And here they are. So don't compost invasive plants. And this amazing art, I don't know if you guys can see it on there, but that is a knapweed and an oxeye daisy on there for us to not compost. And we had plans to actually put up some more information, more realistic photos up there so people know exactly what not to compost, which would be a good time. So that's kind of the end of my presentation, but I really want to thank all of my volunteers, everyone that came out and talked to us and explained everything, and especially the City of Williams Lake, the Caribou-Chilcotin Conservation Society, the school district for allowing us to bring their Enviro Club out. That's Williams Lake Field Naturalists. There's just so many people that helped us in this project, and I just want to thank them so much. So for our final presenter, my good friend Corbin Manson, ISCBC facilitator in the Vancouver region. With an eye for the theatrics and a deep appreciation of nature, Corbin loves being involved in environmental education and draws inspiration from seeing volunteers grow through service, which is great. So thanks, guys.
Thanks so much, Torin. It's a great presentation. I've recently started composting with worms, so I'm really excited to see a composter on the go here. I'm going to talk a bit about, there are a few different youth projects going on in the Vancouver region. These little orange circles represent the different spots we're working at. We've been working hard to get some work going in Port Moody. Unfortunately, given the situation right now, of course, we're not going to be able to have public gatherings and volunteer events out there anytime soon, but I do want to put it out there if anyone's listening and has an interest in volunteering in the Port Moody area. We would like to hear from you, and there will be some information about how you can get in touch with us at the movement break coming up soon. So let's talk about what's going on in Stanley Park. We have partnered with the Stanley Park Ecology Society and a very passionate volunteer by the name of Damien, who you will be hearing from on our youth panel tomorrow night. And Damien is a longtime park steward, regular volunteer at Stanley Park, and when the ISCBC started contributing to the stewardship that was going on there, I met Damien, we connected, and we talked with Janine Johnstone at SPEST, Stanley Park Ecology Society, to get a program or a project going for Damien. So originally it was meant to be a habitat island, and we were going to be removing some bamboo from a spot in Lost Lagoon. And that morphed into removing yellow flag iris that is choking off Sepperley Creek, which is a popular walking area, seasonally inundated kind of wetland and stream habitat. So we were ready to move ahead with that and had a kickoff day scheduled for Earth Day. And I'm sure you're all used to things being canceled by now, but that project has simply gone to sleep, and I look forward to waking it up again soon. BCIT we've been working at as well. We have a group of students from Mosscrop Secondary School. Their Science 10 teacher got in touch with me to help his students get some volunteer hours. So we've been doing on-campus stewardship in partnership with their facilities and grounds team, who've been really great supporters of us. So that's an awesome project. I've got a couple of photos from there that I'm going to show you as well. I just want to talk briefly about our project goals. When we have people volunteering with us, there's the culture of service kind of at the root of everything that we do. Our program is based on the belief that when you go to serve others, you get out just as much as you put in. And we want to help people understand that. We want to kind of instill that value in the people that participate in our projects. We also value land stewardship. Because we work with invasive species, we're trying to reduce the impact of them on the land, which is going to help keep things healthy. We want to develop job skills in our participants, and community partnership is just a great way to make people-driven projects even more dynamic and exciting. I do have a brief video here that I'd like to share with you. This is some of our volunteers from Mosscrop Secondary speaking on why did you want to volunteer? All right, take it away, video.
My name is Nagor.
My name is Vanessa.
My name is Troy.
I like to volunteer because I can really help around in my community. It really makes me happy to be physically making the world a better place.
Here, I'm able to actually go into environments, and that experience is much more rewarding.
I like volunteering because it's really fun. We gotta kill things, and we gotta spend time with a lot of people.
I really love the enthusiasm that our volunteers bring to this project. That's a big draw for me as well. So at this point in the presentation, you might be saying, yeah, you've got these great projects going on, but what do you actually do? What does all these fancy words mean? So here we are at BCIT. We've got a number of volunteers that you can see here. I have rather a knack for choosing rainy days for our events, which I'm sure all of my volunteers really appreciate, but they're real troopers and they came out anyway. We're working on a site that you can see is completely overrun with English ivy, and that's one of the main invasives that they have an issue with at BCIT, as well as Himalayan blackberry and Japanese knotweed. So just over an hour later, you can see big piles of ivy off to the side, and it stopped raining, thankfully, so that went well as well. But we've got the area cleared out and ready for facilities to do a little planting. I believe they might be putting some annuals in there if everything's still going ahead as planned. And here's another site. This is also from BCIT, where we got to collaborate with Forest and Natural Areas Program, I believe is the official title. If I'm seeing my colleague, BCIT alumnus, is nodding, so I believe I got that right. This is a site that we planted as part of a restoration project. So we had come in here earlier and removed English ivy and English holly, and then with the support of other volunteers and the BCIT program, we were able to access hundreds of plants that went in, and the sword ferns are quite obvious, but there's other things in here. Wild ginger and salal, wonderful native plants that we were able to put in. And there's been some boulders and sticks strewn across it. Not only does that discourage people from going off trail, but also can help reduce erosion on a slope like that. So I thought it looked really nice, and I'm happy to share the pictures because it was an example of something coming full circle and getting to see a project through from start to finish. So this brings me to the end of what I have to say. Like my colleagues and like our entire organization, we depend on our partners for success. And so I want to thank BCIT, especially the facilities and grounds team, the faculty and students and administration as well at Mosscrop Secondary School, Janine Johnstone and everyone at the Stanley Park Ecology Society. And I additionally would like to thank the Invasive Species Council of Metro Vancouver, Isabel, and, oh, this is bad, I shouldn't have said the names because I'm drawing a blank right now, the executive director, as well, Tasha. I'd like to thank Isabel and Tasha from the Invasive Species Council of Metro Vancouver. So with that, you have heard about the different projects we have going on all across the province. And right before we go to a brief movement break, I'd like to pass things back over to Jenny.
Great, thanks, Corbin. Well, those are fabulous presentations, and I want to make sure that we're giving all of our participants a chance to ask you some questions, because I know people have been going crazy in the chat, but I just want to make sure that that we address all those questions and you have a chance to respond to them. So let's just take a quick moment. And Torin, do you know if we've got any questions coming in for the three of you?
So let's, Brittany's already given an excellent answer for Helen's question. especially regarding disposal. But the next question there was from Serena, and Serena's asking, where do we recruit our volunteers from? High school green teams? How do you rally such great teams? So for myself, it's been a combination of outreach at schools, definitely. We've had some people contact us, which is always a blessing, but also getting out and getting involved with other volunteer projects and networking with other volunteer facilitators or coordinators has been a strategy for me.
Yeah, and just to add very quickly, a big thing for me was reaching out to a lot of people that I volunteered with or done stuff in the past. It's just taking them out for a coffee, kind of getting them to understand what we're doing. And a lot of the people that I talked to in that way were more than keen to get on board. And there was a big chunk of these people that when I was in Williams Lake jumped on virtually, which was an amazing learning experience for everyone. And it's kind of helped us now having that experience prior to everything happening, which is awesome.
And here in Kamloops, a lot of the volunteers were recruited through TRU. I also recruited some of my friends. So it's really just all about getting people excited about, tackling invasive species and explaining why they should get involved, which is really about making sure that we're protecting our green spaces in our communities and just providing amazing opportunities. So whenever I would meet with a new volunteer, I would always, ask them, what are their dream careers? What do they want to learn? What are they passionate about? And then just pulling from their interests. So for example, not all of our volunteers enjoy doing weed pulls. Some of them like to create maps or they like to do artwork. So just celebrating diversity on my team has been great for keeping our regular volunteers involved and also pulling in new volunteers once they see the different scope of work that we're doing.
Great. Thank you all so much. I'm overwhelmed with the amazing projects that the volunteers have done this year, and for everyone listening too, we are actively recruiting and we're continuing in a virtual way right now, and we've got some really exciting and innovative ways that you can contribute to community. So if you're not already a volunteer, I encourage you to join us.